My coworker took credit for my work, so I got him fired. So I work in a mid-sized corporate office where competition is pretty much the oxygen people breathe. The kind of place where everyone pretends to be team players, but in reality, most folks are just waiting for you to slip so they can swoop in and grab your spot. If you've ever worked in an environment like this, you know exactly the type I'm talking about. The polished smiles, the fake compliments, the endless small talk about collaboration, all while people sharpen knives behind their backs. Me? I'm not that type. I've always been the head down, grinded out kind of employee. I'm not flashy. I don't kiss up to managers. I don't schmooze at happy hours. I just do my work and I try to do it damn well. I actually like solving problems and creating things, not just looking good while doing nothing. But as I learn in my office, sometimes the one who looks the best wins more than the one who is the best. And that's where Logan comes in. Oh, Logan, if you've ever met someone who was all charm and zero substance, that was him. The guy had a smile that could convince you he'd invented it himself. He was tall, well-dressed, always had a joke handy, and could talk circles around anyone. To someone on the outside, he probably seemed like the golden boy of the office, confident, polished, and smooth. But to those of us who actually worked near him, we knew the truth. Logan was lazy. Not just regular lazy, but the kind of lazy where he'd sit at his desk scrolling on his phone for hours, then magically appear in meetings with brilliant insights that were usually recycled from something someone else had said earlier. He had a way of repackaging other people's ideas and making them sound like his own. And the worst part? Management ate it up. They loved his confidence, his polish, the way he could give a presentation without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, the rest of us did the grunt work. Now, here's where it all started. There was this project. Not just any project, but the project. The kind of thing that could make or break someone's career. Our department had been tasked with developing a new system to streamline client onboarding. It wasn't glamorous, but it was high impact. If we nailed it, whoever led the project would have their name stamped all over it in front of senior leadership. Promotions, raises, prestige, you name it. And guess who volunteered to take it on? Yep, me. Well, volunteered is a stretch. It was more like no one else wanted to touch it because it was an insane workload. And I just happened to be the idiot who didn't say no. But part of me was excited. I figured, hey, if I put in the work and make this project shine, maybe I'd finally get noticed. Maybe I'd finally be more than just a quiet guy who got stuff done in the background. So I dove in. And when I say I dove in, I mean it. I was pulling late nights, dragging my laptop home, waking up at 5 a.m. to fix errors before anyone else saw them. My weekends disappeared. My friends started sending, "Are you alive?" texts. Coffee became a food group. But the crazy thing was I didn't mind. I actually loved seeing the pieces come together. Spreadsheets, flowcharts, client feedback, coding fixes. It was like building a machine from scratch and watching it finally work. By week 3, I had something real, something strong. The system worked. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was miles ahead of where we'd been. I was proud of it. Enter Logan. One late night, I was sitting at my desk, headphones in, zoned out on a particularly nasty bug fix. The office was almost empty except for the cleaning crew. Suddenly, I hear footsteps behind me. And there's Logan, all fake friendly grin and, oh wow, burning the midnight oil, huh? Now, maybe I should have been more guarded. Maybe I should have shut my laptop the second he walked in. But I was tired and honestly a little eager to show off what I'd been working on. I mean, who doesn't like to feel proud of their work? So I showed him a little. Big mistake? He leaned over, pretending to be curious, throwing out comments like, "Oh, that's clever," and "Wow, you're really putting in the work." But I could see the wheels turning in his head. Logan didn't just compliment things, he studied them. He memorized. He filed them away. "Hey," he said casually, "you want me to take a look at some of this data for you? I'm pretty good with numbers." That was the first red flag. Logan was not good with numbers. Everyone knew that. The guy once miscalculated a client's budget by 6 figures. But I was polite. I just said, "Nah, I've got it covered." He smiled that salesman smile. Cool. Well, let me know if you need a hand." And then he left. I should have known, but I shrugged it off and went back to work. Fast forward 2 weeks. The deadline arrives. I've polished the system, tested it, documented everything. I'm exhausted but proud. This is the moment. We all gather in the big conference room. Senior management is there, the director, the VP, all the big names. My boss looks nervous but excited. I'm ready. I've got my laptop, my slides, my notes. This is my shot. And then Logan clears his throat. "Actually," he says smoothly, "I'd like to kick this off. I've been working really hard on this project and I think everyone's going to be impressed." My stomach drops. He plugs in his laptop and there it is. My project, my system, my hours of late nights and weekends dressed up in Logan's shiny branding. He walks through the presentation like he built it himself, cracking jokes, charming the room, hitting all the highlights I'd slaved over. I sit there frozen, my heart pounding so loud I can barely hear. When he finishes, the room erupts in applause. The director is nodding, the VP is smiling, my boss is saying, "Great work, Logan." I'm just invisible. I glance at Logan. He's standing there, beaming, soaking in the praise like a sponge. He catches my eye for half a second, and I swear there's the tiniest smirk. Like he knows exactly what he's done, and he's daring me to call him out. But I don't. I just sit there stunned, while the meeting moves on. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just about hard work. In this office, it was about who could tell the story best, and Logan had just sold my story as his own. I walked out of that meeting in a daze. People were congratulating him in the hallway, patting him on the back, already whispering about how he was going places. Meanwhile, I just went back to my desk, staring at my screen, wondering how the hell I let this happen. That night, I lay in bed, wide awake, replaying the whole thing in my head. Every smile, every compliment, every fake offer to help. I realized I'd been played. Hard. And as much as I hated it, a part of me knew this wasn't over. Because if Logan thought he could just take credit for my work and walk away the hero, he had another thing coming. You know that feeling when you leave work, but work doesn't leave you? That was me after Logan's little stunt. I went home that night, made myself a sad dinner of instant noodles, and just sat there staring at my kitchen wall like it was going to give me answers. The applause, the way everyone's eyes lit up when Logan spoke, the way he smirked at me when no one was looking. It all replayed in my head on loop, like some cruel highlight reel of my own humiliation. I should have said something in that meeting. I should have stood up, called him out, pulled up my files, and shown the timestamps. But I froze. I was so stunned that he'd actually had the audacity to steal my entire project that I didn't even process it until it was too late. And by then, the damage was done. The next morning at the office, I realized just how deep the damage went. I walked in and people were already buzzing about Logan. Man, Logan crushed it yesterday, someone whispered near the coffee machine. He's going places, another said. A couple of interns were actually giggling about how smooth he'd been. Meanwhile, when people saw me, they gave me those polite, awkward smiles. You know, the kind where they're not sure what to say, so they just nod like you're the background character in their story. At one point, I overheard two analysts whispering near the printer. Didn't he used to be working on that project? Yeah, but I guess Logan took over. Makes sense though. He's got leadership potential. Leadership potential. Right. If stealing other people's work counts as leadership, then Logan was basically Alexander the Great. And then came the kicker. My boss. She stopped by Logan's desk mid-morning, all smiles. Logan, that was excellent work yesterday. I really think you should take the lead on a few more client-facing projects. You clearly have the presentation skills. I sat at my desk, 10 feet away, pretending to type an email while my ears burned. She hadn't even looked in my direction. Not once. That was the moment I realized how bad it was. It wasn't just about the project anymore. Logan had shifted the narrative. In everyone's mind, he was the golden boy. Now, the guy with talent, vision, and charisma. And me, I was just the quiet guy who happened to be in the room. It ate at me. Every time Logan walked by, his stupid cologne filling the air, my blood boiled. And he knew, oh, he knew. He tossed little comments my way in meetings like, hey, don't worry about this one, I've got it handled. Or, you're good with the details, right? I'll take the big picture stuff. Always with that fake friendly tone that made it impossible to call him out without looking paranoid. The worst was in the cafeteria. I was eating lunch one day, trying to keep my head down, when Logan strolled by with his tray. He stopped, leaned down just enough so only I could hear, and said, thanks for setting me up so well, man. Couldn't have done it without you. Then he winked and walked off like some smug movie villain. I almost threw my sandwich at him. But here's the thing. As much as I wanted to explode, to scream, to tell everyone the truth, I didn't. Because deep down, I knew it wouldn't work. Not then. If I'd gone to HR or my boss with accusations, Logan would have spun it. He'd say we collaborated, or I misunderstood, or that I was bitter. And with everyone dazzled by his presentation, they'd believe him. I needed proof. I needed patience. I needed strategy. Enter Maya. Maya was one of the few sane people in that office. She wasn't flashy, but she was sharp, analytical. She had this dry sense of humor that could cut through any tension, and she didn't put up with office politics. We'd worked together on smaller projects before, and I trusted her. She caught me one afternoon staring daggers at Logan from across the office. She walked over, plopped down in the chair next to my desk, and said, okay, what's the deal? You look like you're plotting a murder. I sighed. He stole my project, Maya, the whole damn thing, and now everyone thinks he's a genius. She raised an eyebrow. You don't say. I'm serious. Oh, I believe you, she said, leaning back. Logan's about as original as a knockoff handbag. But you can't just go shouting it from the rooftops. You'll look desperate. I can't just sit here and let him get away with it. Then don't, she said simply. Play the long game. Document everything. Next time, don't let him catch you off guard. Make him trap himself. Her words stuck with me. The long game. Still, easier said than done. Because in the meantime, Logan was thriving. Management started giving him more opportunities. Logan, why don't you lead this client call? Logan, could you draft a proposal for this initiative? Logan, I think you'd be perfect to represent us at the regional meeting. And me? I was shoved to the sidelines, doing grunt work, quietly fixing problems, watching Logan parade around like he owned the place. Every day felt like swallowing broken glass. But then, something happened. At the end of a Friday meeting, our director made an announcement. We've got a new initiative coming down from the top, she said. This one's big, high visibility, high stakes. We're going to completely redesign our client engagement platform. Whoever nails this is going to get a lot of recognition. The room buzzed. People exchanged glances. This was the kind of project that could define careers. And of course, Logan jumped in immediately. I'd love to take point on that, he said smoothly, already leaning forward. like it was a done deal. But this time, I spoke up. I'd like to be considered too, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. There was a brief silence. I could feel eyes on me. Even Logan looked surprised for a second before plastering on that fake grin. The director nodded. All right, we'll review and assign roles on Monday. Both of you, start thinking about your approach. I walked out of that room with my heart racing. For the first time since the disaster, I felt a spark of hope. This was my shot at redemption, my chance to prove I wasn't just the guy in the shadows. But I also knew if Logan had stolen from me once, he'd try it again. And next time, I'd be ready. By the time Monday rolled around and the director announced that both Logan and I would be sharing responsibility for the new project, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Logan wasn't going to share. Not really. He was going to do what he always did. Sniff around, steal whatever he could, then strut into the spotlight like a peacock and pretend it was all his. The difference this time? I was ready. I remembered Maya's words. Play the long game. And that's when I decided fine. If Logan wanted to play games, I'd play too. But I'd play smarter. The first thing I did was start documenting everything. And I mean everything. Every draft, every half-finished flowchart, every raw data pull, every brainstorming note, it all got timestamped, saved, and backed up. I set up folders with version histories so anyone with half a brain could see exactly when each step was completed and by whom. I even started emailing myself updates, just so there'd be another paper trail. I basically turned into my own personal archivist. At first, it felt a little paranoid, but then I remembered the look on Logan's face when he smirked at me in that cafeteria. No, this wasn't paranoia. This was survival. Of course, Logan being Logan, it didn't take long before he started sniffing around. About a week into the project, I was at my desk working on some preliminary models. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him casually strolling by, sipping coffee like he had nowhere particular to be. He stopped behind me. "What are you working on there?" he asked in that oh-so-friendly voice that made my skin crawl. "Just some rough ideas," I said, keeping my screen angled slightly away. He leaned a little, trying to sneak a peek. "Looks complicated. You want me to, take a look?" I forced a smile. "Nah, it's messy. Not ready for review yet." He chuckled. "Hey, no judgment here. You know I'm a big picture guy. Details aren't really my thing." No kidding. After he wandered off, I sat there fuming. But then I realized something. Him snooping wasn't a threat. It was an opportunity. If Logan wanted to steal again, I'd let him. I'd feed him just enough half-baked work that he'd think he had the upper hand, while the real progress stayed tucked away, safe and documented. It was like leaving breadcrumbs, except these breadcrumbs would lead him straight into a trap. That's when I looped Maya in. We were grabbing coffee one morning when I told her my plan. "I'm going to let him think he's winning," I said. "I'll leave stuff out that looks important but isn't. If he tries to steal it, it'll blow up in his face." Maya's eyes lit up. "Oh my god, I love this. It's like corporate Home Alone. Just promise me you'll keep receipts." "Oh, trust me. I'm drowning in receipts." She smirked. "Then let's give him the rope and watch him hang himself." But I didn't stop with Maya. I decided to bring in someone else too, Raj. Raj was one of the IT guys, the kind who could crack into any system blindfolded. He and I had bonded once over our shared love of bad sci-fi movies, so I trusted him. Plus, he hated Logan. Said Logan once tried to sweet-talk him into fixing his computer without submitting a ticket. I told Raj what was going on. He didn't even blink. "Say less," he said. "I'll keep an eye on file access. If Logan so much as opens one of your drafts, I'll know." With Maya and Raj in my corner, I finally felt like I wasn't fighting this war alone. Still, the tension was brutal. Every day, I could feel Logan circling. He'd hover near my desk, make small talk, try to peek at my notes. In meetings, he'd fish for details. "So, how's your part of the project going?" he'd ask, all innocence. Well, I gave vague answers like, "Still working through some ideas." The hardest part was acting casual, pretending I was careless. I'd leave decoy documents open on my screen when I stepped away. I'd accidentally drop hints in conversation about directions I wasn't actually pursuing. And every time, Logan's eyes would flicker just slightly, like a shark catching the scent of blood. Meanwhile, my real work was locked down tighter than Fort Knox. It was exhausting, living this double life. I'd spend hours crafting the actual project in secret, then another hour planting fake trails just to keep Logan busy. I felt like some kind of office spy juggling two identities. But it was worth it, because I could tell he was taking the bait. One afternoon, Raj pinged me on Slack. "Raj, yo, he just accessed your client strategy draft _V2 file." Me, "The decoy one?" Raj, "Yep, he downloaded it too. Man's digging his own grave." I grinned so hard I had to cover my mouth. The trap was working. But the closer we got to the deadline, the higher the stakes felt. Logan got bolder. He started dropping subtle digs in meetings again. "Don't worry, I'll make sure the final presentation really shines," he'd say, throwing me a sideways glance every time I wanted to snap back. But instead, I just nodded and let him think he was in control, because I knew when the time came, all his arrogance would come crashing down. And let me tell you, waiting for that moment was the hardest part. It was like sitting on a powder keg, knowing the fuse was lit, but not knowing exactly when it would explode. By the final week before the deadline, I could barely sleep. I'd lie in bed, running through every scenario in my head. What if he got to present first again? What if management believed him despite the evidence? What if I screwed up somehow? But then I'd remember Maya's calm confidence, Raj's steady updates, and the mountain of proof I'd been collecting. This time, I wasn't the deer in headlights. This time, I was the hunter. And Logan, he was walking straight into the trap. You ever get that feeling where you've been here before? Like deja vu, but your gut tells you this time it's going to end differently? That was me sitting at my desk the morning of Logan's big presentation. For weeks, I've been building my plan brick by brick, setting bait, laying trails, keeping receipts of everything. I knew Logan. He wasn't the type to maybe steal my work. No. If the opportunity existed, he'd grab it like a rat sniffing out cheese. And sure enough, he did. But the thing about rats, if you know their patterns, you can set the trap. It all started 3 days before the official presentation. Logan had been circling my desk more than usual, leaning against a cubicle wall with that fake casual grin. He'd start conversations like, "Man, how's your project going? Must be stressful, huh? You sure you'll be ready by Friday?" He'd glance at my second monitor when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Classic Logan move. At this point, I was deliberately leaving small portions of incomplete data up on my screen. Not the real stuff, of course. That was tucked away on a private drive with password protection, but the fake drafts I wanted him to see. I had spreadsheets that looked impressive at first glance, but collapsed if you actually tried to use them. Wrong formulas, outdated numbers, misaligned graphs, basically a landmine wrapped in a gift box. And Logan, he fell for it hard. The night before the presentation, I stayed late at the office. My official draft sat open, filled with all those conveniently broken numbers. Sure enough, Logan just happened to pass by my desk at 8:30 p.m. "Oh, still here?" he asked, holding his empty coffee cup like he'd just been working hard too. "Yeah," I said, pretending to be tired and sloppy. "Still trying to get these numbers right? Honestly, don't know if I'll finish." Logan smirked. "Well, don't overwork yourself. Sometimes, simple is better, you know? Just make it look good. They don't check the details too much anyway." I nodded, yawning like I was half dead. "Yeah, maybe you're right." The second he left, I knew he was going to swipe that file the moment I stepped away. And sure enough, IT confirmed the next morning. Logan had accessed my draft folder around midnight. He copied it straight to his account. Hook, line, sinker. Presentation day. The conference room was packed. Executives, middle managers, a couple of department heads. The kind of crowd that could make or break your career. I walked in calm as ever, clutching my real USB drive like it was Excalibur. Logan strutted in 5 minutes later, wearing his best blue suit, hair slicked back like he was auditioning for Wolf of Wall Street. He gave me that smug little nod, the one that basically said, "Thanks for the hard work, buddy. I'll take it from here." And here's the kicker. He volunteered to go first. Actually, Logan said, all confidence, "If no one minds, I'd love to kick things off. I'm really excited to share what I've been working on." The managers looked pleased. They loved initiative. Me? I just leaned back in my chair. "Go ahead, champ. Dance." Logan started strong. I'll give him that. He had charisma. I'll never take that from him. His slides looked sharp. Hell, they were my design, so of course they looked sharp. The graphs popped, the colors matched, the flow was smooth. At first glance, he looked like a rising star. But then, the cracks started showing. Slide 7. A growth projection graph that didn't add up. Someone asked, why does the 2024 projection show a 37% increase, but the raw numbers only show 18%? Logan froze for half a second, then brushed it off with, "Oh, that's just rounding errors." You know how spreadsheets can be finicky. The managers nodded, but I could see a flicker of doubt. Slide 11. A customer retention rate chart. One of the execs frowned. "These numbers don't match what we've been seeing in the monthly reports. Where did you pull this data from?" Logan shifted uncomfortably. Well, we had some early access numbers I integrated. I'll have to double check later." Another flicker of doubt. By slide 15, the whole thing unraveled. His conclusion literally contradicted itself. One line said we'd save $1.2 million annually. Another said we'd save $700K. He stammered, sweating through that fancy suit, trying to spin it as flexible forecasting. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then came my turn. I stood up calmly, plugged in my USB, and smiled. "Thanks, Logan, for that enthusiastic overview. I'd like to share my version of the project, which includes updated data and verified sources." I clicked to slide 1. Crisp, accurate, airtight. Every graph tied directly to source data, timestamped, and cross-checked. I didn't just present numbers, I told a story. Where the company was, where it could go, and exactly how we'd get there. And then, the pièce de résistance. I showed the audit trail. "I want to note," I said casually, "that all of my data and drafts have been tracked with timestamps and email records. Every figure here can be verified. I've also saved previous versions to show the progression." I clicked through a folder of drafts, real ones this time, showing the evolution of the project, emails from my boss asking for updates, screenshots of me submitting interim reports, dates, times, receipts. You could practically hear the oxygen leave the room. Managers exchanged looks. The execs leaned forward. One of them whispered something to the department head, who frowned deeply. Logan looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. And then came the fatal blow. One of the execs asked me, "So, how does your conclusion differ from Logan's?" I kept my voice steady. "Well, with the correct formulas and data, the annual savings actually come to $1.15 million, not the inflated numbers shown earlier. I'd also like to point out that certain inconsistencies in Logan's presentation appear to come from using an outdated draft, one I had discarded weeks ago for being inaccurate. I paused just long enough for the implication to settle. The silence was glorious. Logan stammered, wait, no, I was just trying to, but no one was buying it anymore. The manager's faces said it all. Disappointment, anger, embarrassment for ever having praised him. When I finished, the room erupted into polite but enthusiastic applause. Not the fake kind, they actually meant it. One of the execs shook my hand and said, "This is exactly the kind of work we need." Meanwhile, Logan sat there pale as a ghost, tugging at his collar like it was strangling him. For the first time since this whole mess began, I felt something I hadn't in months. Vindication. The fallout was instant. People whispered as soon as the meeting ended. No one looked at Logan. The managers barely spoke to him as they left. Maya gave me a subtle thumbs up across the room, and I swear I saw Logan's jaw clench so hard I thought his teeth would crack. He tried to corner me afterward, his voice low and sharp. "You set me up." I smiled, calm as ever. "No, Logan, you set yourself up. I just let you show everyone who you really are." And with that, I walked away, leaving him standing in the hallway, humiliated, exposed, and for the first time, powerless. That was the day the office finally started seeing Logan for who he really was. The charming mask had cracked, and once people see behind the mask, there's no unseeing it. But as satisfying as that day was, I knew this wasn't over. HR would involved, management would investigate. And Logan, a snake backed into a corner, is dangerous. The trap had worked, but the real fallout was only just beginning. The thing about masks is, once they crack, people can't stop staring at the pieces. After that disastrous presentation, the office felt different. The vibe shifted overnight. Logan went from golden boy to, well, a walking cautionary tale. People weren't exactly throwing tomatoes at him in the hallways, but you could feel the whispers, the side eyes, the polite but cold nods. It was like he'd become radioactive. No one wanted to stand too close for fear of being contaminated. And honestly, I didn't even have to do anything. The damage was already done. 2 days later, I got an email with the subject line, "Request for meeting HR." My stomach flipped for half a second. I knew what it was about, but HR emails always feel like jury summons. Inside the conference room, it was me, Maya as my support, our HR rep, and one of the senior managers. They asked me to walk through the entire timeline of events. So I laid it all out, from the late nights working on the first project to Logan magically helping and presenting it as his own, to the new project where I deliberately tracked every step. I even showed them the draft trail, the timestamps, the IT logs of file access. They nodded, took notes, asked clarifying questions. Maya backed me up whenever needed, filling in details about how she'd witnessed Logan hovering and snooping. Then HR dropped the kicker. "You're not the only one who's come forward." Apparently, after Logan's meltdown at the presentation, other coworkers started quietly sharing their own experiences. Little things at first. Logan taking credit for small tasks, swooping into email chains at the last second to look like he'd solved problems, hogging group recognition for work he barely touched. It was a pattern, and now the floodgates were open. Logan must have sensed the walls closing in, because he went from smug to desperate almost overnight. First, he tried charm. He cornered me in the break room with that forced grin. "Hey man, look. I know things got a little messy in that meeting, but we're a team, right? No hard feelings?" I just stirred my coffee and said, "I don't hold grudges, but I don't forget patterns either." He blinked, clearly not expecting me to brush him off so cleanly. Then came the threats. 2 nights later, he accidentally bumped into me in the parking lot after hours. "You think you're smart, huh?" he hissed, leaning in. "You think HR is going to side with you? I've been here longer. They like me. You'll regret this." I didn't flinch. "Logan, I don't need HR to like me. I just need them to see the truth." The look on his face was priceless, like he'd bitten into a lemon. Over the next week, HR started calling in more people. Logan was seen pacing outside their office, sweating through his button-ups, muttering to anyone who would listen about how he was being targeted. But every time someone spoke up, it chipped away at his image. One coworker admitted he'd stolen their slides months ago. Another revealed he'd pressured them into staying late to finish something, only for him to present it as his own the next morning. Even an intern chimed in, saying Logan had dismissed their ideas only to recycle them in a meeting later. The guy wasn't just a snake, he was a full-blown parasite. By the end of the week, HR had a binder. I know, because Maya saw it when she got called in for a second interview. Thick, stuffed, Logan's name scrawled across the front. The dramatic showdown came the following Monday. HR scheduled a resolution meeting. That's corporate code for someone's about to get wrecked. We all sat in the big glass conference room. Me, Maya, HR, 2 senior managers, and Logan. He came in loud. "This is ridiculous. I'm being set up. You're all just jealous of my success." HR calmly slid the binder across the table. "Logan, we've reviewed multiple reports, emails, IT records, and testimony from half the department. The evidence is clear." He flipped through the pages, face draining as he realized every shady move he'd made was documented. The false numbers, the stolen files, the gaslighting, it was all there, in black and white. This is twisted," he sputtered. "They're all lying, especially him." He jabbed a finger at me. I didn't even blink. Logan, if you want to call timestamps, emails, and IT access logs lies, be my guest. The managers didn't even look at him anymore. It was over. Finally, HR closed the binder. Logan, your employment is terminated effective immediately. Boom. Logan's jaw dropped. He actually laughed. A bitter, broken sound. You're firing me? Me? Do you have any idea what this company will lose without me? One of the managers, usually mild-mannered, shot back, we've seen what we lose with you. Goodbye, Logan. And just like that, the mask shattered completely. Logan stormed out, slamming the door, muttering curses under his breath. The sound of his footsteps echoing down the hallway was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. The office felt lighter, like someone had opened a window and let fresh air in. People actually smiled at me, nodded in the hallways, whispered little nice job comments when passing by. Management called me into another meeting the next day. This one was smaller, more personal. We owe you an apology, one of the senior managers said. We overlooked your work. We let Logan manipulate us. That won't happen again. Then came the words I didn't expect but definitely wanted to hear. We'd like to offer you a promotion. Lead analyst, effective immediately. Higher pay, more responsibility. You've earned it. I tried to play it cool, but inside I was screaming. Logan thought he could bully, steal, and charm his way to the top. And for a while, he did. But the thing about shortcuts is, eventually, the road catches up to you. Me, I stayed patient. I documented. I built allies. I let the truth do the heavy lifting. And when the dust settled, Logan was out on the street and I was sitting in his former seat, but with the one thing he never had, respect. Sometimes revenge isn't about yelling or fighting back. Sometimes it's just about shining a light and letting the cockroaches scatter. And trust me, watching Logan scatter was the sweetest revenge of all. If you've ever walked into work after a major storm has passed, you know the feeling. The air feels different. The tension is gone. People look you in the eye instead of staring down at their desks. That's what the office felt like after Logan was escorted out for the last time. It was like someone had cracked a window in a suffocating room. The next week was surreal. People I barely talked to before suddenly went out of their way to greet me in the halls. Folks who had once sided with Logan, or at least tolerated him, now gave me nods of respect. It wasn't over-the-top praise, but you could tell in the way they spoke to me. More measured, more thoughtful. Hey man, great job in that meeting. Seriously, you kept your cool through all of that. I would have snapped. You're the reason I spoke up about Logan. So thanks. It wasn't that I'd become some kind of office hero overnight, but I think people finally realized I wasn't just the quiet hard worker. I'd proven I could stand up for myself, even when it meant going toe-to-toe with the golden boy, and that changed everything. That promotion management offered me, it came with strings, of course. More hours, more meetings, more responsibility. But here's the thing. For once, I didn't mind. Because the recognition was real. I was leading projects, setting deadlines, and people were actually listening when I spoke. In my first week as lead analyst, I held a kickoff meeting for a new initiative. Normally, Logan would have strutted in, dominated the room, and left everyone feeling smaller. But me? I started with collaboration. I asked for input, gave credit where it was due, and made sure everyone felt heard. By the end of the meeting, people weren't just nodding, they were engaged. Ideas flowed, energy shifted. Maya later told me, that's the first meeting in months I walked out of actually feeling hopeful. That meant more to me than any title. Even though he was gone, Logan's name lingered. You'd hear it whispered in hushed tones, usually with a shake of the head. Don't pull a Logan. People would joke whenever someone tried to hog credit. Careful Logan numbers, someone muttered once when a spreadsheet looked off. It was harsh, but fitting. His name had become office shorthand for everything not to do. Part of me wondered what he was doing now. Was he scheming at some new job? Trying to spin the story his way? I'll never know. But what I do know is this. His power was broken. His reputation had collapsed under the weight of his own lies, and the office remembered. Here's the truth. There were nights after his first betrayal where I wanted to quit, where I thought maybe I just wasn't cut out for the corporate game. Logan made me doubt myself in ways I don't like admitting. But looking back now, I realize something important. His betrayal didn't break me, it sharpened me. I learned patience. I learned the value of documentation, of strategy, of playing the long game instead of reacting in the moment. I learned the power of allies, because without Maya and others, I'd have been just one voice shouting into the void. And most of all, I learned that you don't always have to scream for justice. Sometimes you just have to let the truth simmer until it boils over. A few weeks after Logan's firing, I had my quarterly review with my manager. Normally, those are cookie-cutter check-ins. Here's where you're doing well. Here's where you could improve. But this one was different. My manager leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, and said, I want to be honest with you. We underestimated you. When Logan started soaking up attention, we thought maybe he really was the rising star, but you proved something more valuable than charisma. You proved resilience. You stayed calm under pressure. You let the facts do the talking. That's leadership. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. But inside, it meant the world, because for months I'd felt invisible. And now, not only was I seen, I was respected. It wasn't just management. The whole team worked differently without Logan looming over them. Meetings became collaborative instead of competitive. People actually volunteered ideas without worrying he'd steal them. Productivity went up. Sure. But more importantly, morale went up. It was like everyone had been holding their breath and finally exhaled. Maya said it best one day when we were grabbing lunch. You didn't just beat Logan, you reset the tone for the whole office. That hit me hard because I hadn't thought about it that way, but she was right. So, here's what I've learned, Reddit. Revenge doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just waiting for someone to dig their own hole and making sure you've got the receipts when they do. Logan thought he was untouchable. For a while, he even made me believe it. But in the end, he wasn't undone by me. He was undone by himself. I just let the truth speak. And honestly, that was more satisfying than any screaming match, any dramatic takedown. Because when the dust settled, I was still standing. And Logan? He was just a story people whispered about in the break room. So if you're ever dealing with your own Logan in life, remember this. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's letting the truth speak for itself and watching karma handle the rest. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.